Yeah. The next one we want up is that egg symposium talking points. Make sure that deck's ready to go next. Okay, so you can see up there, we paid out about $20 million to farmers, a little over $20 million to farmers. We're in 22 states, 7 crops. And in 2024, it looks like we'll be close to 100 million this early in season. So this program that we did last year was for a CPG company that a lot of you people knew, a consumer packaged good company. But the next deck that Greg's going to put up here is the reason behind why this is actually all going on and what's happening. But these companies are looking to supply a sustainably sourced deal. So imagine this is a package of food, and the term soccer mom is going away. It's actually millennial mom now. Okay. And I know that's kind of funny, but it's the thing about it is our generation, the 40s and youngers, are the new buyers. Okay. And they care where their food comes from. So before I show you this thing up here, I just kind of want to put in context a little bit about what I'm going to say. So probably a year ago, or not quite a year ago, I spent a week in Washington, D.C., speaking with influential young people from New York, San Francisco, all across the United States. And I had a booth up, and these young individuals, this is being recorded, isn't it? I'll be careful how I say this. People from all different walks of life, okay, and different pronouns and those type of things, came up to us and said, "Boy, we're so glad you're saving the world." And I said, "What are we saving the world doing?" Because my simple brain farmer mentality doesn't click into that. Long story short, we talked a little bit. We got to kind of exchange a little bit about what these people were doing. So I invited them out to my farm in June. Okay, good. So in June, um, we're in sugar beet country. Just to put that up, and we have to spray a lot for Cercospora. So this is a little caveat. But my farm, my wife has an obsession with egg laying chickens. So we have way too many of them. We had our broilers there. I keep my first calf heifers at home so I can feed them, and we have our feedlot there. So full stop, everything's rocking and rolling. I get a private jet full of people that come to my house, and I said, guys, I want you just to walk around and see stuff. So at noon, and nobody against grass-fed beef or grain-fed beef. I'm to each your own. But I had some corn-fed and some grass-fed steaks and some hamburgers out, and I said I'm just gonna have these people try it and kind of see what their difference is. At the end of the day, they actually like the grain-fed better than the grass-fed, but that's here nor there. When I was talking to these young individuals, which they're probably 28 to 35, 36 years old. I said, tell me what the number one thing that shocked you from being on my farm for a day. And they said, where are all the airplanes? And I'm not that smart, didn't catch on that fast. I said, what do you mean, where's all the airplanes? And they said, well, we thought we'd see airplanes all over the place. Well, then I started to think about it and it clicked in my head. I'm like, oh my gosh. And they said, well, we are told that you guys spray your fields every week. Well, where I'm at, I sit up a little bit on a hill on my farm. Everything around me is farm ground. So they were expecting all these planes were just dipping down and spraying all these fields. But that's literally what they think is happening on a day-to-day basis. They're so disconnected from what we do. So a statistic out there is 1.5% of the population, you guys sitting in this room, feeds 98.5% of the population 3 times a day. And the 98.5% of the population is disconnected a minimum of 3.2 times from the farm. Okay. So I'm guessing that your entire farm is probably not engaged in farming activities in some way, shape, or form. So I want you to think about your sister, your brother-in-law, your sister-in-law, your cousins, your nieces, your nephews that aren't maybe related to the farm And when they talk or they think about how the farm is, you can start to see, even just being within your own family, how some of that gets a little bit disconnected. Okay. So I don't have my phone on me now, but these gosh darn phones is how they consume information. I'm either fortunate enough or unfortunate enough to have a daughter in college already, and we don't talk on the phone. We Snapchat and we do some other thing with a video, right? And I am only 40 years old, and I don't like that stuff. I want to call Brad and talk to him, or I'm going to text him and say these are the things we need to do so it reminds it, right? That's not how they operate. It is very short um, time windows or time frames that they're getting connected to. So we need to make an impact to them. So what we did this summer, just to kind of put a little context to what's going on here, we had a couple food and ag manufacturers that put the same product. So in this case, it was rice in some 20 to 25,000 person town, which is probably a little bit average or a little bit bigger rural American town. Okay. And even in rural America, we have a disconnect. My kids go to a rural school, obviously, because we're in the country, but out of my daughters, my daughters are still in school too, but they have, I don't know, probably 60 kids, and only half of them know where their milk comes from. And that's in rural America. So we did this study that they had sustainable sourced and regular rice in these towns. Okay. So the sustainable, 30 cents more, by the way, all those packages in every single one of these 20, 25,000 person towns were all gone at the end of the day. The funny thing is there was some guys, probably gentlemen like yourselves, that walked up, looked at the two different things, and kind of be like, smirked, threw down the sustainability, picked up the regular rice, and walked out. So we had some people stop those people when they were walking out, and we said, "Why didn't you buy the sustainable rice?" And the guy says, "I'm a farmer. It's the same gosh darn thing." What I want to set that up for is most of you guys in this room were probably raised pretty similar to me. It was keep your nose to the grindstone, don't say anything, keep doing what you're doing, and everything's going to be fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. Unless Mark gets up and starts doing TikTok videos, which you probably don't want to watch anyways, we have to share our story. Okay. And that's what this is really about. You can bucket as much as you want. If you don't want to get involved, honestly, at this point in time, I don't care. I am here to help educate you and tell you what's happening. And there's an opportunity for the next 3 to 7 years where you've got $15 to $50 an acre available for your bottom line. And that's all I'm here to tell you about today. So I'm going to do this PowerPoint. So one of the main things I want to see is why are these companies interested? What is actually going on, and why do these companies even care about what the Sam heck is going on? Greg, can you just move to the next slide? So this slide is not 100% correct, but 70, 80 years ago, we were coming out of the Dust Bowl. It's probably actually 90 almost now, but we were coming out of the Dust Bowl, right? So we knew that you can't just go out and plow everything everywhere. There's areas that are like Kansas and some of these areas where the soil's maybe not quite the way it is. We knew something was wrong. We had to change a little bit. For those of you who are old enough, in 1997, that was the Al Gore Clinton administration. They signed a treaty that really nobody knew about to start looking at, in their term, global warming. We're going to call it weather weirding for the time being today, okay? In 2015, there was a Paris Accord. All these companies came together, said, we're killing the earth, blah, 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 blah. What do I got to do about this? At the end of the day, honestly, I don't really care. Hey, Brad. I don't really care what the heck's going on. What I care about is that 67% that have public concern. And everyone in this room should care about that as well, because at the end of the day, there are markets. That's who we're selling to. So I don't necessarily want to talk about whether this weather weirding or global climate change, you can believe in it or not. I think there's some micro patterns that are out there that are a little bit different, but I also believe that the tectonic plates move 2 inches every single year, which automatically is going to shift some weather patterns. So you take it as you is. But the companies that are buying your crops and making your food are looking to buy low greenhouse gas input crops. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about agronomy here. So when I'm going to talk about low greenhouse gas, go ahead and go to the next slide here. So carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide are really the three greenhouse gases that they're concerned about. Okay. The easiest one for you guys is going to be nitrous oxide. That's nitrogen. That's overall respiration of crops. Methane is primarily in, there's methane in corn and soybeans. We found this out this year that there was probably more than what we anticipated. But methane is primarily in rice and anaerobic conditions. So we flood a lot of rice. So there's a lot of anaerobic conditions that come into that. You literally can be walking out in the rice field and the bubbles are coming up in the air. It's really actually quite interesting. Agriculture is a significant source of greenhouse gases. That is why these companies want to come and talk with us, come and talk with you, because 25% of that worldwide greenhouse gas, or roughly 14 billion of 53 billion tons of CO2, comes from farms. And we can quote unquote eliminate that or reduce that next to zero and still maintain or increase yields based on agronomic optimization of what we're doing. And that's what we want to do. Greg, go ahead and go to the next slide. So ag finance is getting involved. 87% of ag financial institutions know that they have to do this in the future. You guys have probably all got an email from FBN in the past 2-3 weeks, maybe a month. They are actually cutting down a half a point on interest if you are doing some of these regenerative practices, okay? And I want to make this comment up front. Regenerative practices does not mean you're doing no-till and cover crops. Okay, I'm not here to sell no-till. I'm not here to sell cover crops. I'm not telling you that's the only way. We're going to talk about some other agronomic optimization factors. But 87% of ag finance views this as an option. $20 billion was placed into climate smart commodity in 2023 alone. That's a lot of money already coming into this thing. There's 7 times more needed of the finance to make this happen across the United States. One of the things that you're going to learn about a little bit later is how we bundle these up, originate these credits. We act as a custodial and transact against them. So let's just say you're a 1,000-acre corn farmer and there is a projected price of $25 an acre on $1,000. The financiers will look at that as projected collateral and you can borrow against that into the future. Okay, so just like as you look at your balance sheets and you borrow money, this is another asset on your balance sheet that they will use in the future. The way one on the end, not a lot of people know this. I'll just be very blunt with you. I gave this presentation a little over a month ago. That number has climbed to 7,500. These are companies that have what's called SBTI, which stands for Science-Based Target Initiatives. These are companies that have committed to either net zero or net negative or reducing by 30% by 2030, 2050, yada, yada, all that stuff. Okay. So who are these companies? This is Nestle. This is Mars. This is PepsiCo. This is Unilever. This is Ingredion. This is ConAgra. This is, trying to think of the ones that'll be here close. Oh my gosh, I just had a brain fart, but those are a lot of groups, okay? It's projected that there is over 680 million acres of projected greenhouse gas reductions that'll get paid to farmers. And we'll talk about some of that in a little bit, but 18% of those companies are directly ag dependent and have set public targets to net zero. Now, they're not all corn and soybean people, just to be fair. Cargill's got it. Not Lululemon, Lululemon. I think these pants that these women wear, and you know, stuff like that. Victoria's Secrets, all those companies have initiatives for sustainably sourced cotton and textiles, is what they call them. I just did a deal out of Georgia where we sold environmental assets on top of cotton that's going into Serta mattresses and one other kind of mattress, but like the cotton that goes over the top of those mattresses, they want these all driven sustainably. Greg, go ahead and go to the next slide. This is where you guys come in. So the greenhouse gas value chain, not to bore you to death, but the greenhouse gas value chain is fertilizer manufacturers. It is farmers and cooperatives, it's food manufacturers and food distribution. We all share this scope, okay? So I'm going to pick on just a couple of these things just so you kind of get a background of where it's at. If I'm a fertilizer manufacturer, does everybody know where your potash comes from? Do you know what it takes to involve to get that potash here to Illinois? So you've got a lot of different carbon footprints along the line to mine it, to put it on a train, to take it off a train, to go put it into a shop, to go do all these other hoopla stuff. So when I talk about agronomic optimization, I'm not saying go drop all your dry fertilizer. I'm not going to say those kind of things. What I'm going to tell you is if you could crawl, walk, run, reduce some of that synthetics and maybe use some in-furrow products or plant nutritional products that would make up the difference, you actually will lower your footprint. Because if you're going to do, I'm going to pick on Mark Dodd here, but Mark Dodd's got a product called CFOS. So I could drop 100 pounds of DAP, use Mark's product at 5 gallon an acre. Well, for him to get 5 gallons an acre to move something, I mean, I could put a lot of 5 gallon jugs in this bucket per acre. If I filled this thing up with potash or DAP, how many acres am I going to do? Not very many. So it's said that the amount of microbes that are used will all fit in a 24 by 24 foot room in their base form, 24 by 24 foot room in any office that's out there. Where if you think about how much does it take to put 90 million acres of fertility out, that pile would be here to St. Louis, right? So just using nature and some of the products to do some of that, that's where some of the fertilizer manufacturers can cut down on some of that. Same thing with the farmers and the cooperatives. So nitrogen inhibitors, in-furrow fertility, biologicals, fulvics and humics. There's some talks about, making sure your Brix levels are up on the corn with boron and sulfur and some of these others that guys are getting away from fungicides and insecticides and some of these others, because where do those bugs go to? They go to the less healthier plants. Okay. All that cuts down on the greenhouse gases. Doing split applies is a big thing. Residue management at the end of the year, whether that's if you're doing no-till or minimum till, good for you, keep doing it. If you're doing regular tillage, is there an opportunity to put some type of a residue management product that starts breaking down that residue for nutrient cycling instead of doing full tillage? Sometimes you can't get away from it, I understand that, but thinking about different steps within the cropping season and how you can go about that, that's where it's at. The last two, those are obviously who you guys are selling to and then who's making food, but all those different play into a line. Greg, go to the next slide, please. So in 2023, you saw that we paid out $20 million to farmers. And what a lot of the companies are doing is they are setting these science-based targets and saying we need to be net zero by 2050. So they do their scope 1 and scope 2, which is all their indirect and direct greenhouse gas functions. And then the last is scope 3, and that's all of us sitting in this room. They have no idea what you do. They have no idea. So what they're able to do is start by rewarding existing practices. So finding out where you're at, okay? So if I'm a guy that's an average Joe, maybe I run a little bit of in-furrow, maybe I don't. Maybe all I do is I split apply and I do some minimum till. That's it. That's all I do. So they're going to pay me for what I already do. Then they're going to look at, okay, let's say that their scope 3 emissions is as long as this table. That's 0 down there, this is 100 here. We reward enough farmers and it gets to this line in the sand here, which is 75%. So we rewarded farmers for the information that we got from them. And we were able to calculate that we only have about 25% to go. So what we do at ARVA is look at all that data and information and say, if we incentivize farmers to do, I'm going to use fulvic and humics because I was talking about it this morning, but let's just say I'm going to use some fulvic and humics and reduce some synthetic fertilizer. Can I incentivize farmers at $5, $10, $15 an acre to do some of that, cut down? Well, my footprint goes down as a manufacturer even more. Okay. So first they need to kind of take inventory, if you will, of where they're at, reward for the existing practices, and then help drive down their footprints by incentivization. Okay. The other thing with incentivization is there are companies that can actually do what's called scope sharing or stacking. So I'll use soybean oil because if you think about soybean oil or soybeans and you think about soybean oil is only 20% of that soybean, right? So only one company's taking 20% of that soybean. There's still 80% of that soybean to take. That might be going into livestock, that might be going overseas, but somebody else is paying for that. So we can actually get two consumer packaged good or end buyers to come in, one pay for the 20%, one pay for the 80% of that acre, if you will. And typically we can actually get a little bit more per acre for the farmer in order to incentivize to do some additional stuff. At the end of the day, worst case scenario, these CPGs are going to start looking at where they source their grain. And they're going to find out, am I sourcing from the best people? Should I be moving to get what this is? Now, I know some of you guys are thinking in here because I'm semi-telepathic, because I can say, Matt, this is such BS. How can you even say stuff like this to us? I get it. All right. I totally get it because you guys live this every single day of the life. But I want you to think about what does it mean to switch location? So for people that are 40 and younger, some of these people have gone to school for way too long, and some of them are only getting their jobs for the first time. So when they go and get their 401k or their Roth IRA, when they sit down with that financial planner, do you just take a guess on what do you think they're asking that individual to invest their money in? Impact. They don't even care. It's experiences and impact. So I want to have impact. So if you think about how the stock market works, just how the grain markets work, if I said we're going to be sustainable in 10 years, these are the companies that these individuals are putting their money into. So the company says we're going to be sustainable in 10 years. They get $10 from all of us millennials. Guess what their stock prices do? They go up. And it's exponential. This is the most bipartisan thing that's coming here. This is not going to go away because it fits both the left and the right side of the congressional aisles. But this is what they're doing. So, Greg, go ahead, go to the next slide. Here is a small list. Some of the lists of what we did this past year here with Greg, and if you were involved in Greg's programs, crop rotations, conventional till, no-till, a reduced till, cover crop, soil protection, organic fertilizer, which is just litter or manure, I should say, livestock integration, use of nitrogen stabilizers, nutrient management. There's actually about 45 different things that you can do. When you start looking on this, you guys can pretty much everybody in this room can pick out some things that they're already doing. Okay. So one of the differences between what you've probably heard for the last 5 years and been pounded on is carbon offsets. This is not a carbon offset, okay? This is an inset. So the difference between an offset is you have to have some type of additionality and you have a long-term contract with it, okay? These are all insets, and an inset is a supply chain driven carbon abatement, okay? Carbon abatement. What that means is that as I grow this corn crop, all the carbon avoidance follows with that corn crop or the soybean crop or the wheat crop or the rice or the barley or the flax or oats, whatever it might be, okay? But it's a one and done. So think about it as the mentality you guys have when you plant a seed, you harvest a seed, you sell the seed or the crop, whatever. We do the same thing with insets, all right? So there's no long-term contracts. These are one-year deals. And if you want to do it again the next year, you got to re-sign up for it. Just like you market grain, you might not market all your grain to the same people the same year. You might switch it around. That's what the flexibility of these programs can do. Okay. So you're not tied up in long-term stuff. This makes it a lot easier. Greg, can you switch to the next one, please? So in preparedness for this, um, there is some stuff that has to go through with all this. So there's early experience, there's understanding baselines and opportunity. That's what a lot of us did this past year. Okay. So in 2023, 2022, even some people were on the early edge of this. We were really kind of understanding how does this market going to work and what it's going to do. It was not perfect. I'll be the first one to say I'm not happy with everything that we did even, but I think that we did probably better than a lot of people did. But getting some farmers paid, getting the process in place, understanding what our partners like Greg needed to do and what you as farmers needed to do was important. The next one is data preparedness. So in 2024, actually, let me go this. In 2025, you guys have all heard about the CI score. It's 45 Z tax credits and 40B tax credits that are coming. Okay, it is $80 billion. So think about 42 million acres of corn is going into this deal. That's 10 months away. So what you already did 3 months ago, after last year's planting, cover crop, doing tillage is actually going to affect how you get paid in 2025 already. And this is going to happen for the next couple of years in the biofuels credits. There's a plant that's about an hour and 20 miles south, or hour and 20 south of you guys here, that is going to produce what's called SAF, which means sustainable aviation fuel. If you've been at any small regional airline and they have United, United is already producing or already using SAF. It'll be a blue truck that comes in and fills the planes. It's not like right out of the bottom there. United is committed to a very large amount in the next couple years here. Delta Airlines, I was at their corporate headquarters in Atlanta 3 weeks ago. They will be committing to the same thing. In my home state of Minnesota, I've got 2 Ag Senate committee members as Congress people. They have helped commit, and all the ethanol plants in Minnesota have committed to this as well for a joint venture going forward to make this happen. Frontier Airlines, the one where, you don't know if you're going to stand or sit, may or may not get your bag. They are committed 100% of their fuel to SAF. So this is not going away. So when you think about what you guys are doing on your corn crops and your soybean crops, so this is soy and beans. It'll also be camelina, carinata, and canola, and one other thing. I can't remember what the other one is. Doesn't matter. But they all are going to look for CI scores, and that is all going to be as part of your grain. Okay. So we've got a program coming. I know there's other programs out there that are available. Just be careful on some of them. Some of them want some money. Some of them are not necessarily validated or verified. Just make sure that you know what you're doing. We're going to have that available here in the next couple weeks for Greg and our other channel partners to validate people's CI scores and leverage that. And what that'll do is what we're going to do is we're going to say, go look at all your 2023 stuff, see where you're at, and then find out how can you move it. Okay, because it's not too late. It's only this time of year, depending on what your fertility plans are. There's some things you guys can do in season here to help drive that CI score even lower. Okay. The other misnomer that I'm going to get out, because somebody's probably going to ask it, just because you have a 29.3 CI score does not mean you're getting paid. Okay. So I was fortunate enough to do some pilot programs with ethanol plants last year. They already know where they need to be, and 29.3 is not the number. The ethanol plants have to set their numbers first, and then you go from there. So the efficiency of the ethanol numbers, and depending on if you're in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas for that matter, and how they're doing things all varies in difference. All right. So just know that just because you got a number doesn't mean that you're going to get paid X amount of dollars. There's a sliding scale for ethanol plants. It's no different than if you think about grading on your seed in today's world. Okay. The commitment integrity, And co-benefits and stories, a lot of these companies are looking for these value stories, so no different than what a lot of other people do. This is kind of where it's at. Go ahead and go to the next slide. There we go. Okay, so what does this mean to you as farmers? There's going to be increased value to existing data. There's farm-specific agronomic insights, enhanced soil health and land value, and low greenhouse gas competitive advantage. There are several programs out there that are available to you. There's going to be sustainable claims like a Walmart. Walmart wants to commit 50 million acres to their sustainable claim. It's actually public knowledge. You can look it up. Google Walmart sustainable deal. They are 50 million acres. We only have 315 million acres in the United States. Start thinking about all the commitments that these CPGs are going to make, it fills up pretty quick. But they all want a part of that so that they can claim that throughout their supply chain. The increased value to your data, I want to be very, very clear with you. I can find more information in 3 minutes about your farm than anybody could ever find from the data that you give to Greg and that we use. We only report the greenhouse gas impacts and the statistics around it to the CPGs. They don't get anything else. So here in Illinois, we did 119,000 acres across the state. We'll say 120 for easy figuring. So they know that there's 120,000 acres here that had X amount of GHG reductions or greenhouse gas reductions. It was X amount of farmers, X amount of fields, and these are the practices by percentages. That's all they know. Well, I could go to the local FSA office and get that information. They don't know anything where your fields are at. They don't know anything who the ownerships is. They know nothing. Now, we do get audited. So for those of you guys in the finance world, we got audited by EY, Ernst & Young, which is the #1 auditing firm in the world globally. And we were one of the only people that passed. So we do ask for a lot more data for validation and verification purposes. Part of that is for some things that are coming down the pipeline in the next year or two. We want to be prepared for that. But it's not hard. It's not tough. One of the one of the meetings I was at in Ohio this week, we had a partner out there, for example, that got in way, way late, and they did almost 100,000 acres in 3 weeks. So that was from flat-footed all the way on. So the data acquisition is not that tough. We're using all the same information that you guys are doing on a day-to-day basis. It's very, very easy. And then we will calculate those points. So, Greg, this is the end of this slide. Can you go put up the Aurora seed one, please? So while Greg is switching to another slide, I'm going to kind of do a pitch for him, if you will, on what the value of our channel partners are. Is there any questions while we wait here? The questions about is the center ethanol. It's going to be called Chrysalis Biosciences. We have ran a little bit of corn through it already. So there's a few tweaks they need to make, and then I think next month there'll be some more. Yes, sir. Uh-huh. Yeah. So the question was, what are the expectations for the next 3 years? So I have not said anything about livestock yet. So think about eggs, think about beef, think about pork, think about poultry as a whole, and chickens. So the meeting I need to take at 11 o'clock today, I won't tell you who the CPG is, but they have a lot of meals every single day. I'll just put it that way. They're a fast food restaurant that they are looking to source sustainably poultry for all their chicken sandwiches. Okay. So think about the ethanol perspective. So we've got corn that's going into ethanol with low CI scores. What is the #1 thing that comes out of ethanol besides, or ethanol plants besides ethanol? DDGs, cattle feed, hog feed, poultry feed. So that stuff can, because it already has a score, can be traced into poultry. So one of the companies we spoke with on Monday night, I had supper with, they provide 80% of the eggs to Walmart. We're involved in a process out in North Platte, Nebraska, with a group called Sustainable Beef LLC. Sustainable Beef LLC is owned 50% by Walmart. There's a good friend of ours that is already doing some stuff with about 12,000 head of cattle in Kansas on sustainable beef. Well, if you start to think about all the byproducts in some areas of the country that don't go into ethanol, they go into meat, right? So you got meat, you got biofuels, and then you just got regular grain. So a deal I signed last week is going to add 45,000 more acres or 55,000 more acres to Illinois here that goes to Mexico. And these are things that, like, if you would have told me this 2 years ago, I said, I'm full of, you know what? And if you would have told me this 6 months ago, when I first got the call for some of this stuff, I still wouldn't have believed myself. We've been very blessed to be in front of a lot of this different things, but that's what's coming. So one of our number one fastest growing things is chickpeas. You know what chickpeas are made into? Hummus, that's right. I don't eat it. I mean, I'll eat it, but I don't eat it. But if you have one of them pretzel crackers, it's not so bad, you know, but I don't eat that stuff. But we now have a program in 2024 for chickpeas and flax and oats. You know what the number one milk that goes into coffee is? Oat milk. I mean, these are the type of things that I mean, we're getting there. Some of the programs will be pilot in 24, but it'll be here in 25. Same thing with the livestock situation. The amount of oh, here's the other one. Sugar. How many Cokes are sold on a daily basis? 1 billion with a B. 1 billion Cokes are sold every day. Berkshire Hathaway, he just sits in the back collecting cha-ching, cha-ching. We have one of the largest initiatives last year. We got Cokes to go in and do some sugar beet. So I'm in sugar beet country, but sugar cane, if you've ever been to Central Florida, is absolutely amazing. It's one of the coolest things you can ever see. So if you ever go down there, go to US Sugar by Indiantown and Belle Glade and Lewiston area. They have 4 to 6 feet of peat sitting on top of limestone. It's the coolest thing ever. And they have these track machines, and it's like they're floating out there on a waterbed, picking this stuff. Brad's been there. It's so awesome. South Texas, same situation. So think about this. We don't deal with them here, but bell peppers, watermelons, cantaloupes, apples, blueberries, tomatoes is a big one. Carrots is another big one because, and there's carrots in Michigan, there's carrots where I'm at. Big thing is because they suck a lot of nitrogen. So being more efficient with those type of crops is a big thing. We did, oh gosh, what was it? we did 80,000 acres of silage this year going into dairy. That'll almost double for next year. We are doing, Mark and I stopped by a group here in Northern Illinois last night to talk about enteric methane in manure management. Does anybody know what enteric methane is? Okay, so the methane that comes out the back of the cows that everybody complains about, you can actually do feed additives to help reduce that, and we can create a carbon credit off of that. So honest to God, it's like these are the kind of things I think are goofy as I'll get out, right? Manure management. So any of you guys raise hogs or cattle or something here? Okay, you got pit barns. Okay, anybody that's got a pit barn, what happens at the top of the pit barns if you're not taking care of them? You got a crust that happens, right? There are biologicals that we can stick in those pits that will reduce the methane and nitrous oxide, which will lower death, loss, yield, sickness, et cetera, so we can actually create carbon credits off of that and give you a 3 to 7x nutrient value return, maybe a little bit more. I'm probably a little conservative, but 3 to 7x nutrient management for that manure. And I want to get paid for it. How much you guys get paid for it? Yes, sir. Uh-huh. Mhm. Yep. So the question is CI score going to be just for fuel or not? It is not. The immediate need is for fuel. It's for ethanol, SAF, and biodiesel or renewable diesel. However, all of our chickpeas, our flax, and our oats are all CI scores this year because it's easier to measure them. So the Nestle's, the Mars, the Unilevers. Um, let me back up with a statistic. There's 100 million dogs in America. 100 million of them. I did not know this. That seemed excessive to me, but there's 100 million dogs. So that means there's about one dog for every three people, right? Yeah, one dog for every three people. Well, I know people that spend more money on their dogs, and I'm not one of them guys, but I'm just saying there's people that spend a lot of money on their dogs. My wife just buys the food, I look the other way. It is what it is, right? You just let her have some of them things. But if you think about how much these people are spending on dog food, that's one of the number one things that we had in 2023 was for um, pet food, pet care stuff. So that doesn't go to an ethanol plant. That goes to Jacksonville, Illinois up here. It goes to Hinton, Iowa, or the Quad Cities. Oh gosh, no, what's the northwest one? Benton, on Benton, Davenport. Thank you, Brad. Davenport's got another one. If you get think about all the Martha Whites, the Pepperidge Farms, the Diamond Blue, like all those are all part of grain that doesn't ever touch the ethanol plant. Those right now we're getting paid for carbon abatement. So we're looking at a baseline of if you didn't do those stuff versus what you are doing those stuff and we measure them, but in the future those are all going to CI scores. They'll all go that because it's so much easier to measure. That's a good question. That's a good. First of all, go tell the Schooler guy they need to work with ARVA. So Schooler's a little bit unique. Schooler's the fourth largest grain facilitator in North America. Super good people. I really like those guys. But they some of their stuff goes in ethanol plants and then feed. Some of it goes to their plant and then direct to feed. So depending on if it's ground feed or not, which we have a program coming in 2024 for that as well. I forgot about, but so that kind of grain is just having that communication as farmers with your end buyers. Okay, so this is kind of I don't want to call it as an arrogant way to say it, but know your worth as a farmer and what you have. So if somebody says, oh, I'll buy your grain, um, not navigate, mitigate, negotiate your grain as is, just as you normally would sell it, and then ask them, are you guys looking for any carbon um, attachments to that or sustainability attachments to it? Because you should get paid for those as well. Like on the ethanol plants, what we've been doing is saying you do your grain as is, right? Because if you watch the local ethanol plant, maybe not here, but they play this game. I shouldn't say a game. It's to feed, but they might be 5 cents positive. Then the next day they're 10 cents negative, and then they're 20 cents positive, and then they're 15 cents positive. They just want to get your corn, right? So I just told these guys, you guys run how you want to go get the corn, and then let's worry about the CI scores on top of that. That way there's no, well, if you give me X amount of corn with this CI scores, then I'll do it for this price. I don't want to get into that fight. Otherwise, then you erode all the value you did right off the top. So good questions. Yes, sir. Mhm.
practicing. Because the only thing that's happened, something said, hey, we're just gonna pay a shitload of money to these farmers to claim we lowered our carbon footprint, but grand scheme of things, nothing changed in the carbon split. Oh, correct.
That argument could be made. What I would suggest is I wrote a number on here. What's this number? What's the number? Exactly. So how are you gonna get the number from me? Exactly. Okay. Oh, no, just hold on. Let me, it's a very good question. Here's my next crop. What's my number? You don't know. These companies are gonna have to continue to pay because they have to continue. They have long-term, some of the contracts I just signed are out to 2030. And they're like, how are we gonna get, and they're not all in 1 year. So like, for instance, we're gonna tackle 30% of it in 2024. We'll go to 35 and 25. Like, we'll continue to up it to get to that point. Are you gonna tell me that you're not gonna do anything different from now until 2030? Exactly. Yeah. It's inventory. They don't know what they don't know, right? That's the first thing. They have no idea what they don't know. And you cannot, in the age-old decision ag, precision ag is, you cannot manage what you don't measure. They're paying for carbon abatement because what they come in, so imagine this. If I pooled everybody in this room, and let's just say this is the state of Illinois today, okay? What's the average yield in Illinois? Take a wild guess. 205. Okay. Are you have better than 205 yield? Okay, well, that's a little different. I can't pick on you. Do you have better than 205 yield? Some years, yes. So what we do is they have a baseline, and it's actually not 200 to 5. They base it on the national average, which is 178 or 79 this past year, right? So what they can say is, we know that the corn we procure is at least 179. It uses X amount of fertilizer, it uses X amount of tillage practices, and it does X amount of cover crops, right? That's right there. Well, you are better than that average, right? So they want to get the best people in this room paid because that lowers their, because this is their baseline. This is what they view is their carbon footprint that they're going off of. So if I can pay you here, I get to claim from here to here. And this is what we are measuring and validating, and then we give that to them. So if I want your data every single year to maintain that I'm not as bad as the average, I'm gonna have to keep paying you. So this is where the carbon offset market, where Indigo and others came out early and just, look, they're a heck of a lot better looking than I am. All right. I'll put it that way. Brad's shaking his head. There's very attractive younger females that are built a heck of a lot better than this that came out to farmers' places and said, you need to sign up for carbon. Well, that's all fine and dandy. But then 5 years later, after you signed up and you haven't got a payment yet, the gumption goes away. So a guy like me that comes in and says, I'm going to pay you $25, what's your knee-jerk reaction? Get off my farm. I don't want to listen to you. I get it. I'm a farmer myself. I might do a lot of things just to see what's going on. So I'm a little bit different in that perspective, but it's a crawl, walk, run methodology, right? I don't do business with you until Brad tells me it's okay. That's just the way we act. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying go jump on the bandwagon and fall off the cliff with everybody. But what I'm saying is things are changing, things are different. Those were carbon offsets, which a lot of you guys are doing all the good things already. So you're not going to qualify for these carbon offsets. The carbon offset market's 20 years old. It's not up with times. I challenged some of the people to say, do you know what a fulvic and a humic does for the soil? And they said, what? I said, okay. How about a metagenomic test? You ever heard of that? And they're like, no. I said, do you know what biogeochemistry is? No. Okay. So then how are you going to tell me how to farm? Get off of here. I don't want to listen to you, right? So my wife is from Lithuania. And last week, her family's all over there yet, but they have in the capital city. We were fortunate enough to have a place there. Her aunt gave it to us, but they are like in the capital city. They're probably 10 to 15 years behind where we are if you went to Chicago or any other major city. Okay, they're just behind. And then if you go out to where my wife's parents live, which is out in the country, it's like stepping back 30, 40 years. Okay. You can literally drive to their farm or to their city, and there are very happy people, partly because of the vodka, but there's very happy people that have one bottom plows with horses pulling up potatoes. And on the other side of the street, there's a 550 STI brand new John Deere combine taking out rapeseed. I mean, it's such a stark difference. But 2 weeks ago, my sister-in-law sends me a picture from outside of our place there in Vilnius. There is 3,000 tractors shut down that city because they didn't like the rules and regulations. This state in Illinois is unfortunately somewhat similar to my state in Minnesota, highly regulated. We have a lot of different things. We as farmers have to get ahead of this. We have to get ahead of this. So we either come to the table kicking and screaming and dragging our feet, or we get out ahead and say, hold on a second, boys. We are actually already doing this. We are doing everything that you guys think we're not doing. It's the food transparency portion of it. It's the 33-year-old young lady that's at my farm saying, I had no idea this is what you guys did. It's connecting with those people. I'm not saying go give the farm away in data and all that stuff. Please be very careful on that. But we need to figure out ways to tell our story and to be better. So if that's reduction fertilizer, I hate that term. Oh God, I hate that term. When everybody says I'm going to reduce my fertilizer, well, okay, for why? That's a much better term. Optimize. I'm going to optimize. Could you get this every time? And if anybody sells for any of these companies in here, please don't take this the wrong way. But every time somebody comes into my farm office and says, we've got this thing, we're going to drop your nitrogen by 50 pounds. Good luck. I'm 60% below the county average. How are you going to take it down further? What products are you using that are so much better than what I'm already doing? You want to do a trial? Go ahead. But here's my contract. For every bushel that I lose side by side of yours, and I'll let you set the trials up, you pay me for. Guess how many have taken this contract? Exactly. Nobody. And they ain't gonna either. So there are, I'm gonna call them concoctions, but formulas like Greg and Brad and Dan back there, actually, Mark, some of these guys have made, put together. It's alternative, it's optimizing. Like we don't hardly use any P and K anymore. And for the last 3 years, I was number 2 or number 3 on, obviously the contest fields are a little jaded. I get that, but we've got fields that we're doing it with, 0.5, 0.6 pounds of nitrogen and half of what the university says for P and K. It's other things like magnesium and molybdenum and sulfur and all these other things that nature doesn't do anymore. Once you start entering them back into the concept of things, it works a lot better. It's just quite interesting. So, okay, what time is it, Greg? 55 minutes, yeah, okay, good. Do we want a little break or no? All right, well, let's take a 5 minutes then. We'll come back in 5 minutes and start again or 10 minutes here.
Restroom inside.
You sure as heck don't have as many cover crop seeds now. So I'm gonna pretend for a little bit that I am Greg's employee. I am gonna pitch to you a little bit about why I chose partners such as Greg and others across the country. I a service that outside of the country. Feel very strongly about incorporating in economic activities. We take it as far as you can see. So there's a thing called ethics. Really, at the end of the day, that meeting, there are certain hierarchies that work differently. What's called biochemistry. Biochemistry. Words of that. Acts different here. It's a desk going away than it does in red. On the one way. But my nutrient cycling cover crops next to the vegetable. Cover crops, some cover crops, not all, related to cover crops in a very broad term, that's why I use it. But if I use a rye cover crop, rye has a little bit of shock that happens. I'm just talking a whole bunch of different heads. But what that means is that when the root is going and growing, it's a hormone. Can be negative. After the plant. I planted rye in my corn. So I'm probably going to plant something different, but you're going to take care of all your pomeranian, big weed, water zone. Water. But so a rye will actually, a good exercise in rye will actually a lot of people say, well, these cover crops and reduce 30 to 50. No. What I'm going to challenge you today, take a look at activating that cover crops for other benefits or carbon cycling or nutrient cycling that is what have a hard pan, yeah, anaerobic and would be on top. After we get the cycling. Carbon that you have in the air or that you are pulling into plants actually goes down into the ground. So for those of you guys who are long-term no-tillers and don't have anaerobic soil, or you have, I'm sorry, you have anaerobic soil, you will actually, if you take a 1 meter core test, you'll see a lot of activity in the top. I gotta think, I always talk in metric, so let me put it into inches. So in the top 12 to 15 inches, you will see a lot of activity. From there down to 39 or 40 inches, there'll be no activity. The soil is actually dead. It's not doing anything. So being able to put the right mycorrhiza in there, get that microbiome started again, it is amazing what that'll do for your nutrient cycling. It's just wild. But there are some products and things that you guys can do to make that happen. So if I'm Greg here and I'm looking at different things that I'm selling, whether it's cover crops, treating the seed, having my seed, there's different points along the way. It's the products that he's covering, tracer minerals, some of the formulations that Brad's working on them with. All these different items play a factor into what is coming down the pipeline here. So you guys have probably heard of the low carbon biofuels, the feedstocks, biochar, carbon credits, sustainability claims, scope 3 emissions. And I already shut my ears off because it's way too much to understand. Well, I get it. Let us help you. We want to make this very easy for you so that it doesn't disrupt your daily operation. Greg, go ahead and go to the next thing. But we do believe that it is coming and that you should be aware of it. I'm not saying go drop all 1,000 acres you have into the system. I am telling you to crawl, walk, run. Let's do a couple fields. It's only a 1-year obligation, and let's rock and roll from there. Froze it up, huh? There we go. So overall, so you saw my previous slide, there's $20 billion in ag that was invested into environmental assets globally between biodiversity. That's another thing that's coming, is biodiversity and water credits. Those are some other things that are coming in the future. But there's $135 billion invested in environmental solutions in 2022. 5,000, which obviously that number is 7,500 now. Global companies are committed to sustainability. 45% of fuel is pledged to be low carbon biofuel by 2026. That is a huge flipping number. 70 countries have committed to net zero emissions by 2050. So why and what should we care about this? But we see that something's happened. Greg, go to the next slide, please. Roar Seed is going to help facilitate programs to help meet this goal. So whether this is with a sustainable claim, a scope 3 emissions, or helping you as farmers get your CI scores as you go into biofuel plants, Roar Seeds is here to help that. We have a data privacy policy that aligns with our values and client protection. As I said a little bit earlier, when ARVA gets your data, I would be very happy to show you what we show the CPGs and the end buyers. The only thing that's a little bit different is, I will tell you, with CI scores, you are their Schedule F. So if this young man right here had bought a combine and he puts $250,000 write down on his taxes, your tax man's going to say, like, okay, where's your receipt? And he'd be like, oh, don't worry about it, it's there. But you can't do that, right? You actually got to have that receipt in order to do that. So the ethanol plants need your information to claim that tax credit that's coming. Okay. Growers are ultimately in charge of whether or not to engage. This is the one thing that makes us different than everybody else that's out there. It is your choice. You guys are the CEOs of all your operations. You guys make the choices on what you want to do or not. If it's not the right time, it's not the right time. That's totally fine. And Roar is partnered with a third-party independent provider. ARVA is not owned by anybody. We are not hooked up with Bayer. We're not Truterra. We're not anybody like that. We're independent. So we have nobody that we have to answer to per se from any manufacturer. We're not selling fertilizer. We're not selling seed. All we want to do is put more money into farmers' pockets. That's number one. That's all we're doing. Okay, next slide. This is probably the most non-talked about slide in all of industry, and is yet still one of the most important for educating farmers on what's happening. So across the top, there's sustainable claims, scope 3 emission, CI scores, and carbon offset. I'm not going to talk about carbon offset today, but if you have some enteric methane, you want to do some stuff, you have some livestock, there's some options that we can do there. You have some pasture and rangeland, there's a lot of carbon finance that we can talk about. If you run into a program like that, or somebody you want a sniff test, call Greg and I'll do the sniff test for you, because some of them are not as poked up as what they think they are. So let's start with sustainable claims. How many of you guys have been with the EQIP and the CSP program? Okay. All you had to do for the EQIP and CSP program is do it, write down that you did it, maybe take a picture or something, bring that back to the FSA or the NRCS office, I should say, and you got your money. Okay. That's what a claim is. That's what a sustainable claim is. So that's what Walmart is looking at. Not for everything, but for a lot of it. There are also other companies like, oh my goodness. It's going to sound really weird, like Enterprise, the car rental places, and Hertz and all those people. That's where their sustainable claims are coming from. So people that aren't even in ag are doing stuff to help out with ag. Okay. So in that situation like that, it's like, did you or did you not do it? Do you have information that you did do it, or validation, and you get paid? It's that easy. Okay, we are quote unquote affecting sustainable or regenerative agriculture. Good to go. Scope 3 emission count or scope 3 accounting or scope 3 emission reductions is taking the information from a sustainable claim and putting a carbon value to it. Okay, so on my previous slideshow, there was like, I do no-till. Well, if you were doing conventional till, what is the difference of carbon abatement that you do? Well, if I was doing that, here's the level. And if I'm no-tilling, I'm removing or avoiding 0.25 tons of carbon. Okay, so we don't necessarily add them up because there's a model, but I'll put it to you this way. If I was to buy all of Brad Zimmer's products, I should be getting 1,000 bushels an acre of corn, but it's only more like 450. But, right, like think about the manufacturers, they'll say, well, you're gonna get another 7 bushels here. You're gonna get another 20 bushels here, right? Like you can't just keep stacking these things up. There's a sum of parts, if you will, where it's like collectively it's better. That's how the carbon market works for scope 3 emissions. So I could do cover crop no-till or minimum till. I could do all these different things, but it's not like I'm getting 5 tons an acre. I might only actually be getting 3/4 of a ton or 1 ton as they're all combined together. So we take that number and we run it through, we run your practices through a model, a couple different models, which is called a ensemble or a syndicated, where we just throw them all these models together and it gets the best outcomes. And then we have that validated and verified, and then we provide Nestle or these scope 3 emission companies saying you avoided 500,000 tons within your supply shed this year. That's pretty much what we do. And then CI scores is, it is crop and location dependent, where we are taking the same data again that we used in sustainable claims and scope 3 emissions. We're using the same data again. We're just using a different methodology or different model to give a score. Okay. So whatever you guys play in, the data is all the same. It's all exactly the same. So the number one question I get is like, oh my gosh, I got to do all this with my data. No, you don't. You just do it one time. The first time's a little painful. I mean, it probably will take you a day or so to do it, but after that, then it doesn't take that long. It's like the first time you switch to a different bank or you switch to an insurance company, it takes a little bit to get that process started. But after that, it's like, here's my updated information, off to the races you go. Okay. So that's the beauty of how those works. I'm going to pause there for a second because I want to ask for any questions, but these three, the sustainable claims, the scope 3 emission, and the CI scores, those are the three that you guys are primarily as farmers going to get hit up about for the next 10 years. What questions do you have? The question is, am I familiar with the Bear CHS program? Can you get out? I don't know. There are some rules. I mean, obviously some of the stuff was signed by contracts, right? So some contracts, people have been able to get out, especially if they haven't got paid. If they've got paid, it sometimes is not so good. So I can't answer that one specific, but I would say that moving forward, unless you think about it like hedging grain, like corn, right? So like last fall or last summer, I sold corn for 2024 here already. Right now I look like a genius, right? That's just that's instilled in my head from losing so much money growing up that that's what I'm going to do. But I did that. I didn't do the whole crop, right? I did some. Well, 50% is what I sold last fall or last summer. So I would be very careful about contracts. I would focus on 1-year contracts as much as you can, or with crop. And what I mean with crop is any of you guys have wheat. Technically, we're about almost pushing 50% through that wheat crop right now. So make sure whenever that wheat crop is, that the contract for you to, kind of expires shortly after when that crop is harvested. And if you're doing any double cropping soybeans, that that kind of starts another contract with them just on the soybeans. So be careful about how you sign these deals. I would, if they're beyond a 1-year deal and they own some data or they own right to the environmental asset and it's not you not releasing it, those are some things I would look at. I would not sign a multi-year deal unless it was for a portion of the grain with a fixed price. And the reason for that is you do not want to tie the acre up, you want to tie the commodity up. That's what the difference is. So then it removes a lot of exposure from your side. Any other questions on this one? Okay. Greg? Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Mhm. It's 100% private. Yes, sir. The only thing that you have to be careful of right now, and I think this is going to come out, but I had a call with Robert Bonney, I don't know, probably 3 weeks ago or something like that. And he cited something that he said. So is everybody familiar with climate smart commodity grants? If not, go look at them like ASAP. There's $3 billion that's available from now until 27 or 28. Okay, so climate smart commodity grants. It was originally a $1 billion project. It got to be $3 billion. And there's a hell of a lot of money for Illinois farmers. If you do the climate smart commodity grant with one of our programs, which is a scope 3 emission, so any sustainability program, if you do them at the same time, you can do them together. If you do a sustainability program and then do a scope 3 or then do climate smart commodity grants, they won't let you do that. So you can't stack them that way. That's the only caveat. There are some soil and water outcome funds. If you guys have heard of that one, there's a whole bunch of money for that. There's watershed programs that are available. You can stack on that as long as they don't have stacking restrictions. All of our programs you can do EQIP and CSP with. Soil and water outcomes. Yeah, soil and water outcome funds. Yep. That's a huge lot of money is there too as well. So I looked at a guy in Ohio on Monday and they're part of Ohio H2O program. So if they can take Ohio H2O, they can take our program and an incentivization program, and he's going to have $75 an acre. Now, that's not everywhere, but some of you guys, well, I don't know about here, so I shouldn't say that. I will tell you that in Minnesota, where I live at, there were times in 2006 and 2015 to 18 that if we got $25 an acre or $50 an acre net revenue, we were doing pretty darn good. And I think those times are coming again, especially for guys who maybe didn't sell corn. If corn does actually go sub par 4, I don't think Greg cut down on a seed cost for the gracious of his heart. And neither did anybody else. So there's still a lot of input costs there. So I've been telling guys crop 24 is not necessarily the year of if we're going to make money. It's how much money are we not going to lose. And that's a cold, hard fact to say. So some of these programs I would encourage you to look at just from a cash flow perspective. There are some very big checks that we wrote to farmers this year that were involved in these kind of things. So something to just to pay attention to and think about. Yes, sir. That's a great question. So the question is are we going to be able to leverage a CI score? So a couple different things. I as a farmer, what I would ask you, Brad, is how much of your corn goes to ethanol or crush, how much goes to feed, and how much just goes to the elevator. So for everybody in this room, those are the first things I'd think about. As you proportion out who you sell to, how does the environmental asset that's up here match up with what your operation is? Okay, so if you're a 1,000-acre farmer or corn farmer, we'll just say, because I love corn. But if I have 1,000 acres of corn and 500 of it goes to ethanol, right? 100,000 bushels goes to ethanol. I'm going to pick my best fields to report on CI scores for the most money. Okay. The other farms, I might be doing the same gosh darn thing, but my CI scores might not be as good because that was, what do you guys call it here? Not river bottom or lake bottom, the bottom ground. I think you guys call it here bottom ground or something. We don't call it that, but the lower pieces where maybe the yield is 25 bushel less, right? You did all the same things. It's just that ground's tougher, right? Brad needs to come to your farm and help you out a little bit. But those are the type of things that I would look at from a portfolio. So we have the option now on ARVA. So there's a lot of people who talk about running CI scores. I'm going to tell you what your farm CI score is. Honestly, as a farmer, I don't care. I don't care what my farm CI score is. That doesn't do anything for me unless I'm selling everything into ethanol. What does matter is I want you guys to think about how you look at your CI scores on a field by field basis. Okay. County by county basis. So when you look at CI scores, you want to have a field ledger of how much grain, where it came from, so on and so forth. So what county are you in here? Keep forgetting. Macoupin, yeah, how do I say Macoupin? All right. So Macoupin County here, I have 250 of those 500 acres. In the county next to me, I got another 250 acres. Well, here on this 250 acres here, the base CI score might be a little bit lower. So I'm doing better. So my CI score here in this county might be a 15, but my county over here, that's a 20. I'm doing this exact same thing. It's just based on where you are in these counties. Now, you might farm the poor portion of this county over here, but knowing that information is going to be important going into your farm. So if I know I can get 10 cents a bushel for 20 CI score corn, or I can get 25 for 15, I'm probably going to sell my 25 into the ethanol plant. I'm going to take the rest of it and go into a program like a scope 3 emission or a sustainable claim. Okay, so understanding, and I know this is really, it feels complicated. I promise you it's not going to be that complicated. We've created software to help you make these decisions. So starting next week, Greg will have the ability to run your farms for 2023, and we will give you a field by field ledger of what each field CI score is. We'll give you the county. All that information is going to be available. So you'll be able to run your last year's situation, and then you can take a look at it and say, well, this is what I need to do for the future. Or, man, if I could just fix a soil problem, or if I could just do a little bit with nutrient management or do something along these lines to help lower my CI score, now is the time to start thinking and looking at that because you're in early 2024 yet. Okay. For those of you who don't do any side dressing, any foliar feeding, any in-furrow stuff, that is a huge opportunity for you right now. Any other questions? Yes, sir. It's all the same. In order to go into biofuels, you have to run the GREET model, GREET. It's from Argonne National Lab. You have to run that for biofuels. If you're going into California markets, Washington markets, or Oregon markets, you run GREET Plus. And that's GREET plus those guys' stuff. If you're going to SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel, you run GREET plus ILUC, which is indirect land use change. So we want to, I know this guy's shaking. I know. I want to make it very, very easy for you guys. But so when you guys go in, we know this is what you're going to do. And we have the easy button for you. For biofuels, nope. People say there's CARB, but CARB is California Air Resource Board. That has to do with some of the methane stuff, but also biofuels. It's a little bit different. So that's just GREET plus. That's all that is. So we run, you're gonna hear Vera, Decent, Comet, Car, Gold Standard. There's all these kinds of different things you can run. IPCC, like at the end of the day, all you need to know for biofuel CI score is GREET. And we're using some of the GREET model stuff for other crops. You can backwards calculate into it. All it is just total overall carbon divided by yield. So it's pretty easy. Yes, sir. Mhm. Yeah. So some of those guys, we are with some. I don't know what I'm allowed to say yet, so I'll put it this way. There's a little bit of a shakeout that's been happening the last couple weeks because of stuff. So I think that there's going to be some changes on how some of that's run. This is how Arva's position is. What Arva's position is that we are going to run your CI scores through a group like Greg. We will give you the information, but we are not handing over the validated information. Okay? Because if we went through the work to validate it, I'm not giving it away to a competitor in order to come in. Now, with that being said, if you go into Schooler and Schooler wants to use that number downstream, wonderful. As long as you give us the right to release that information, I'll release the information to them. So they'll take a ledger, your ledger that we have, we'll give it to them so that it follows all the rules and regulations. And then they know that they bought 100,000 bushels from you, and here's what the CI scores are on that 100,000 bushels. So if you guys know what IP grain is, identity preserve, this is like a watered down IP. It's pretty much what it is. So let's say all of you guys sold in here. So let's just say you went to Schooler or you went to TGM. So what we do is every single one of you guys would have a ledger, and you can't see your ledgers, but every single one of your ledgers, if you want us to release it to them, we'll release it to them, and then they can take it and go sell it and do whatever they want to with it. So we do not charge farmers to do that. Now, Greg might charge you $100 for pain and suffering, emotional distress, counseling, whatever that is you go to, but we don't charge the farmers anything for that CI score. So we charge the ethanol plants for release, and that's it. A lot different than some companies, yes. Because I'm not going to stand in the way of whatever you're going to make for money. I just want a investment banking fee off of it. Yep. It is, I can go in any grain bin. Okay. There's no IP to it, identity preserve. It's not like non-GMO or organic, but the ledger that we give them says they've got 1 million bushels from 30 farmers, and here's all the different CI scores. Well, then they can't use them. Yeah. It goes back to this. It goes back to this guy here that's gotten a combine for 250,000 that he's not going to tell his guy about. They can't use it. They cannot. They can use his grain. I mean, because it all gets commingled, right? But they can't use his score. He's not signed up. He has unless his score is, if he's got a score that he gives those people, they cannot use it. It's like trading paper, right? Like if you sell your corn, you can go buy paper back, right? All we're doing is we're taking that ledger and saying, in this 2.5 million or 2 million bushel bin, we have 1 million bushels of corn that have CI scores on it. The other million doesn't. So they can only trade on that 1 million for that deal. Because that other million might have 45 CIs in it. That's correct. Yep. They have to have that. Yes, sir. Mhm. Yeah, but no, but you could do a projected one. We have the ability to run projections. So you, just like you project your yield out, we just fill in the calculator and it'll project out what you're gonna have. Mhm. It's a horse apiece, I'd say. What I would rather see you guys do is go get your 23 data in, go run what it is. And, you know, sometimes we get so caught up in this, we forget about some of the agronomics. Let me turn it back to agronomics. Did you have your best cornfields last year or the best cornfields this coming year? Huh? Well, I do. I have 4 fields that all yield everything, every single, I mean, you put corn on them, it's 250 bushels. I don't care if you go spray with Roundup and try to kill it, Gramoxone, it's 250 bushel corn, right? All, like in 2024, this is my corn year. I got my best fields got corn on it. My sugar beet fields that do the best got sugar beets on it, and my soybean fields that do the best got my soybeans. That happens once every 4 years. That's just how our rotation is, right? So think about your operation just as you would manage that today and say, all right, I know that I've got these fields this year are going to probably average 210, but on my rotation, the next year they might be 215 or 220. That changes your CI score, right? Inputs might adjust a little bit. You might actually look at saying, how do I maintain a little bit of that consistent CI score? And that's where I would encourage you to run last year's stuff to kind of see where am I at? What can I potentially do for the future? The projection side is more or less, I got a new farm. I have absolutely no idea what this farm is, right? I rented 320 acres from my neighbor this year because he wants out. Go out on top, brother. Good for you, right? So he's got 320 acres. That guy is a very good farmer, but he's done everything on this since I've met him in 2006. I can go in his thing and he'll have where the tile lines are on papers like this, right? Super good guy. That farm's going to do good because everything goes over the scale. I know what the scale does, right? But from variability, I variable rate every single acre I have. In 2024 here, those 320 acres will get flat rated on everything because I don't know what I don't know, right? So I'm going to go in there and say, all right, Kurt is his name. And Kurt's going to have, Kurt averages about a 218, 220, pretty consistent on there. Significant manure, da 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 da. This is all corn year. I'm putting the whole farm to corn. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to project out this is roughly what it is. I'm going to do some soil sampling on that. We're going to talk to Brad and Mark and we're going to say these are some things that we maybe want to change. But I'm just going to kind of take a guess at where is that corn. If that corn doesn't come back at a below 20 CI, which it probably won't because I don't know anything, that stuff's going to the mill because I know that they're going to pay me a premium of 10 cents and that's what I'm going to do. So those are the kind of scenarios that, you know, as you think about your operation and maybe this year I sell X amount of ethanol to that person or I sell X amount of corn to that ethanol person. But at the end of the, fine, all right, thanks. At the end of the day, it still comes down to what is my ROI, right? Because that all those things are really nice, but if I can go get 50 cents premium, this stuff doesn't really matter, right? Just this is education awareness of what it is. Greg, let's flip through. I think that's about done. What else I got? Is there any other slides on that one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I'll fly through these really quick. This is a process that we walk through. So we are huge data privacy policies. You put your information in, we give you that estimated environmental asset balance sheet. So what is the potential in scope 3 emission? What's your potential CIs? What's your potential sustainability claims? You decide whether or not you want to move forward. You might put all the information in with Greg and say, that's good enough. I'm just going to sit this year out. Totally fine. No problem. If you want to move forward, we confirm practices, verify program alignment, and transact, which you get money, right? So this means potential additional revenues for you, I mean, increased value to existing data, unique business insights, clear sustainability solutions, legacy of the land. I got a 78-year-old landlord. This is one of my favorite landlords because when we actually do a little bit of custom work back and forth. He does all the tillage on his farm. I never have to, I go in there and I plant at 10 miles an hour. It is perfect. You don't have to worry about missing any rocks. You don't have to worry about tile intakes, nothing. It's perfect. And I asked him one time, I said, Ron has no kids coming back to farm, right? He had 5 girls. He has no kids coming back to farm. So I said, Ron, why do you want me to give you all these maps? He's been one of the best precision ag guys I've had since I got to the area. He wants every single yield map. He wants every single tile map. He wants every single soil sample. Every time I talk about when these guys first introduced me to the B crop test, I'm like, come again, what? And I said, Ron, we're going to do this new test. And he goes, oh, I'd love to see it. Help me understand what it does for me. He's looking at the value of his land and what that does and leaving that legacy. He's not my least expensive, but he's not my most expensive guy either. He's been extremely good to work with. But leaving a legacy for some of these farmers, and I'm not saying girls can't come back to the farm. I have 3 girls myself, and I think my middle one will probably be that person, but she said she wants to go be a lawyer for a little bit first. So we'll see how that operates. These are the things. Here's 2 programs that we did in 2022. So this is a little bit old, but they compound. Okay, this is where when you can actually execute on something, it compounds. So we did 10,000 acres in 2022 for a group. That expanded to over 50,000 in 2023. And an ingredient company, so a company that sells finished product goods into like Chick-fil-A and those type of places. We did 5,000 acres, that turned into 100,000 acres. So these are the type of programs and information that's out there.
You got 2 minutes.
All right, go to the next slide. Okay, that's it. So those are my slides for the day. So I want to thank you guys for coming. Greg's going to get up and talk about what he's got going on next. And what I want you to think about during Greg's slides is how some of the agronomic pieces fit into your operation. So just placing the right seed on the right ground can shift 10 to 20 bushels an acre, which adjusts not only your profitability, but these environmental assets quite a bit. The things that you put in furrow, the plant nutrition that you do, residue management, all these things along the line, building that systematic approach is what feeds into here. So I'm going to be around here afterward, but I need to go talk to a CPG here for just a little bit.
Are you still going to cover the CIA slide deck?
Put it up there. Those guys, there's 2 other people on the call.
Oh,
No, go ahead and put it up there. I'll look at it real quick. It's fine.
I haven't even
Oh,
converted it over.
no. All right. I'll do one other thing when I come back from my meeting here, but we'll let Greg go through this here first. So. Show this back.
Yep. Okay. All right, cool. We're rocking and rolling. Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming out to the meeting today. I hope you're getting a lot of good information from what Matt's talking about. I encourage you to ask him questions, and if you got anything that's in your mind that you're still not clear on, ask him, because he's definitely the guy that you're going to want to be asking those questions to. So what I'm going to do. So Matt asked if I would go through kind of the portfolio that we have here at Roar Seed Solutions, so that he can kind of help. I know he's already talked about a lot of things, but he wanted me to kind of go through things so that you guys can see how a lot of things that we're doing tie back to ARVA and the opportunities there. So first off, we are a family-owned company. Started back kind of 2020 is when we started, but officially 2021, January 1st, 2021. So this is my family. The cool guy in the shades obviously is me, but Mandy is my wife, and she's in the back of the room, and she's helping out doing more of the billing and starting to work on managing the office and stuff, and getting her trained up on um, all the processes and everything that goes on in the business, because I'm getting to the point it's time to start handing that workload off. And um, so you'll see her around here if you come to the office. We got Lily is our daughter. She's 10 years old, getting ready to turn 11, thinks she's going on 16. Hank the Tank, he's 7 years old, and he's definitely a 7-year-old boy. I mean, he is 100% boy. So he's on the run all the time. And then we got Gus, the grinning guard dog there. If you come by, a lot of times I bring him to work and just get him used to being around, the traffic coming in and out and that sort of thing. So yesterday, whenever I was putting this presentation together, I was just thinking, okay, I wanted to put together kind of a mission statement, I guess, if you will. And this is kind of what I come up with. So what we're doing here is our goal is to continue to keep learning and understanding how we can provide growers ways to do more with less. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. But we want to help growers reach their farm's maximum performance while lowering their input costs. The best way that we can do this is by understanding how our soil biology works and unlock the nutrients in the soil that we can't get to. So Matt kind of alluded to it a little bit, but we know that, unfortunately, as much as I hate to say this, but we all know at some point in time, we're not going to just be able to go out and put as much fertilizer on as we want, whenever we want. That at some point in time, that that day is probably is a little bit closer when we think of being, regulations and that sort of thing. So really what I'm wanting to do, and you'll see throughout, is I'm trying to really understand how we can be tapping into our, the tied up nutrients that we have in our soil. So this slide deck, I kind of put it together on a rough timeline of where we're at today and moving throughout the growing season. So first one to start off with seed. I know a lot of seeds already booked, paid for, that sort of thing, but there's still a fair amount of seed out there, decisions to make. So Roar Seed Solutions, we are a regional owner with Pro Harvest Seeds. And we cover 11 counties as our footprint, but we can go about anywhere, but 11 counties is our territory. And currently have two dealers that we work with. Cook Seeds over by Carrollton, Illinois, is a dealer of ours. They mostly work in cover crops and small seeds. Prairie Town Feeds down by Bunker Hill. They move a lot of cover crops, wheat and small seed, forages, things of that nature. And I have up here that ready to start expanding. I'm currently looking for more dealers in our footprint, and I think five is kind of the number that I'm feeling comfortable with. So a little bit about Pro Harvest. Whenever we think about agriculture in the United States, we think of grassroots and that kind of thing. Pro Harvest is a family-owned independent company, and they are based here in Illinois, up in Ashcombe, Illinois. And they are a company that it was not a question for me on whether this was the company I wanted to partner with, because they, being that family-owned company, that's definitely how they treat people, as family. Because when Mandy and I were meeting with them about partnering with them, they reached out to us to ask if we want to be a regional owner. And whenever we were meeting with them, that was back during COVID, so it was, a lot of online meetings. But whenever we were meeting with them, they would stop the conversation. They would ask my wife, "Do you have any questions? What's your thoughts on this?" Things like that. They knew as we move forward, this would be a family company, so they knew the importance of making sure that the whole family was on board. So that right there kind of sealed the deal for me, right? The nice thing about Pro Harvest is I kind of put everything up here, all the different trait platforms and stuff. Pro Harvest, we have access and work with pretty much all germplasm out on the market. So last week or week before, we had our production conversations about 2025, and in that meeting with every genetic provider in the industry, because they all see the importance of a family-owned independent company, and everybody's wanting a piece of that pie. So been a really great relationship with these guys, but you can see, we've got, Enlist, we got Flex Beans, we got a really nice lineup of conventional soybeans, conventional corn. So we kind of got the whole portfolio. So it's been really nice working with them. Next up, Whiffles Hybrids. We did take on a dealership. Kurt Kessler, my rep, is in the room. And this has been another really great opportunity or great partnership because, again, another family-owned company. They've been in business since 1946. And like Pro Harvest, they've got a lot of really good technology, good germplasm and stuff like that. And for everybody in the room that does buy seed from me, you're most likely, pretty much everybody's planting a little bit of Whiffles. So through that, I've had an opportunity to see how Pro Harvest performs with Whiffles, and in doing that, been able to see what packages we can put together between the two companies. And I really think that the packages that we can put together between Whiffles and Pro Harvest is pretty well second to none, because they perform together very well. So we are a Pivot Bio dealer. Do a fair amount of Pivot Bio on corn treatment. So just wanted to put that up there. Craig Riley, who's rep for Pivot Bio. Craig, want to wave? He is in the room, so if anybody has any questions on Pivot Bio or whatever, please either reach out to me or him after the meeting. So kind of switch gears a little bit. I'm going to start off with soybean seed treatments. And so FX3I is our in-house soybean treatment. It is our fungicide and insecticide, and I'm not going to read everything, but it's got, we cover a pretty broad focus of protection. And so this, whenever I'm treating a soybean, this will be the base treatment that will be going on your seed. And so, and I'm not going to sell a seed. I'm not going to cut a rate. So if the seed's coming out of this building, it's getting a full rate. So that's our base treatment. Next, this is a bolt-on. So we do treat a fair amount of Saltro on soybeans for those looking for protection against SDS. Nice thing with Saltro versus Alivo is Alivo, we're going to see, burning on the cotyledons and stuff. With the Alivo, in a lot of cases, we're using a PPO for our residual. And with those two together, we have burning on your cotyledons pretty bad. So that's why we've switched. We're using Saltro because we kind of alleviate that burning effect. Switching away from those products, we're going to start getting into biologicals. So Soy FX, and I'm going to be sincere when I say this, that if I'm treating a soybean for you, I highly recommend that we go ahead and put Soy FX on that soybean. Okay. Soy FX, just kind of go through here fairly quickly. It can be seed treated, it can be in furrow, and it could be sprayed foliar. Your bang for buck is on seed, because whenever that seed germinates, it's already going to have that shot of steroids in the arm, and it's going to come out of the ground screaming. A lot of some of the things that Soy FX does is it activates the lower auxiliary buds to begin to start branching. Okay, so whenever that bean plant is young and it comes out of the ground, a lot of times you got a big long stem with a couple trifoliates at the top. With Soy FX, you're going to start to see that thing branching right off the gate. With more branching, we're going to see see up 28% increase in pod counts, and we're going to see 23% increase in nodulation using Soy FX. And and then the other thing that Soy FX is going to allow that soybean to do, if we ran into a weather event where we have hail or whatever, high winds, and that stem happened to break, what Soy FX is going to allow that plant to do is start regrowing from the point of breakage rather than just cutting that off and then relying on your auxiliaries buds to take over. So Soy FX, very great product, and I highly recommend. This picture does a pretty good job of justice on this product. So next up, B4. So again, we can do seed treatment in furrow and dust. Dust I will talk about here in just a little bit, but just focusing on B4 benefits of using B4. I've put this on wheat and that got planted last fall, and it looks phenomenal right now. But B4 benefits is it's going to help solubilize phosphorus, zinc, and iron in your soils, making it plant available, helping solubilize that those tied up nutrients that are in the soil, making those available to the plant. Allows the plant to be more efficient in the utilization of those nutrients that it's taken up. In the past 3 years across 11 states, they've been seeing 7 bushel increase on soybeans, and if I remember, I think it's like 9 bushel on corn. Something I wished I would have put that up there, but we are able to use this on corn and soybeans. So another good product that and wheat as well. Another good product. Phenom. Phenom is another interesting product that is a good product to be utilizing. Again, can be used in seed treatment, in furrow, and foliar. But what Phenom is going to do for you, it's 2 forms of bacteria. One form of bacteria is going to take nitrogen out of the atmosphere, convert that to ammonium, and supply that nitrogen to the plant and help with nitrogen production in that plant. The second bacteria that's going to be on the plant is going to help with solubilized phosphorus and help that plant better metabolize that phosphorus that comes into the plant. Brad, do you remember what kind of yield we see from Phenom? I know you've used it quite a bit. Okay, so Brad was seeing 11, 12 bushel using Phenom with B4. Okay, so I'm going to move to dust. I did mention dust. Now, we are a distributor for Newfields Ag, so anybody that's in the room that wants to look at maybe adding some of these products I talk about in your portfolio, you can reach out and get you set up as a dealer and that kind of thing. But so with Newfield, this Low Mutech and Newfield are same company, but Low Mutech, this dust product is their patent. It is their product that they have. And so what dust is it's derived from soybeans. Okay, so it's a soybean dust, and it is a talc and graphite replacement. It is a seed lubricant. And the nice thing with dust, whenever you put talc and graphite on your seed, you get that dust plume. With dust, you will not get that, dust cloud from putting it on your seed. It's going to relieve the static on your boxes, in inside your box as the seed's going, you get static on the inside of your planter box, is going to help relieve that static. Now, the cool part about dust as I move forward is they found out that with whenever you have biology, in a lot of cases, like if you're buying a product that is a talc graphite blend with biology in it, it's a multiple compartment product. The reason for that is that talc and that graphite is going to kill that biology that's in that jug, right? So the talc is going to suffocate it. The graphite is toxic, so it's going to kill that live bacteria. And that's why they're in multiple compartments. What they found with dust and that protein that's in that soybean is it is a good food source for any biology that goes in the dust. So these next couple products I'll talk about the main component is the dust, but we're adding in other biology into that. Well, I wished I would have made that a little bit bigger. But so you're with TerraSym 450 plus dust, you're going to get the benefit of obviously dust, but the TerraSym is a product that is going to help your plant. It's going to help it produce, utilize nutrients a lot better, but it's also going to help promote root growth and development of root hairs on your roots. So be in contact with more soil because those root tips are where you're getting, those roots are absorbing, pulling in your nutrients, your water, and that sort of thing. And if for any reason, if there is something that would cause a root to tear, rip, or get fed on or whatever, TerraSym's going to get that plant to replace that root hair, that root tip, versus just sloughing it off. So the TerraSym 401 is for soybeans, and I will say the best time of application with dust is either you can either get it in a bucket and measure it out yourself, or you can order it where it comes in a case. It's already pre-measured for a box of seed. So you can sprinkle it across the top of the box of the seed, run that box through your seed tender, and then once it runs through your seed tender to your planter, you've pretty well mixed that really well, and you're ready to rock and roll. Or if I'm treating Pivot Bio for you or any of your seed for you, I have dry applicators where I can put this on the seed for you. And once you get your seed, you're ready to rock and roll and you don't have to mess with it. Yeah. Yep. Did everybody hear that? If you have anything left over after you empty out your seed box, if you see any dust left over, you're using too much, back off the amount that you're putting in. So with so the 401 is formulated for soybeans. 450 is TerraSym 450 is formulated for corn. And with corn, one thing that the pink phomethotropes that's in the TerraSym is going to, and which is a byproduct of your plant. That's kind of the waste product that your plant produces. TerraSym 450 plus dust is also going to help that plant be able to tolerate whether it be being whipped by the wind or hail or whatever. It's able to withstand that stress a little bit better, lack of moisture, that sort of thing. Now with TerraSym 450, this is a really cool product that just came out. It's TerraSym 450 plus one. All right. And I think if we're looking at using TerraSym 450 on your corn, it's kind of a no-brainer to kind of switch over to this. So what this is not, I don't want to call it an insecticide because it does not kill the insect. What 201 is going to do is it's going to have that plant release a hormone that if you had a rootworm or any root feeding insect that hatches around your root zone, this is going to have that plant release a hormone that insect, whenever it's looking for a food source, it's going to sense that and decide that's not where I want to go to feed, right? But if you were to have let's say a rootworm that hatches right within your root zone, it would still potentially feed on the root, but with that Terrasym, instead of it again sloughing off that root, it's going to that plant is going to want to replace that root tip, and that's what that Terrasym is going to help do. So you can see I got several pictures up here of where they use this, use the 201, and you can see that we've increased the root mass, we've reduced the amount of feeding, and you've got a lot more fibrous root system than the untreated. So, and the more roots you got, the more dirt you're touching, the more nutrients, the more all the good stuff, right? So, this is a really cool product. So kind of switch gears a little bit. Envita, for those that are looking for something that's going to help with, produce nitrogen in your corn, your soybeans, maybe foliar or what have you. Envita is a product that is going to help do that. It is going to enter into the plant through the stomata on the underside of the leaf, and that's where it's going to do its work in the plant. I don't want to spend too much time on any one product just due to time. Ion FX is another product that we've got for corn, sorghum, and small grains. So kind of switching away from products that can be used on soybeans. But Ion FX, again, we can do it as a seed treatment in furrow or foliar. But what Ion FX is, it's going to get that plant to where it's going to start producing growth promoters, your PGRs, things of that nature. It's going to entice that plant to come up out of the ground. It's going to increase your germination, your coming up out of the ground, and that sort of thing. So Ion FX is another good product that we can be putting in, and it's going to help your uptake of phosphorus and water, and facilitates micronutrients availability within the plant. And just, you have something?
Yeah, I just don't think on the
We'll get to Brad in a minute. I'll introduce Brad here in a little bit. That guy is just bucket of resource knowledge and everything. So, so we'll kind of switch gears. We'll move away from seed treatment, but so NutriQuire is a product that I wanted to mention. Your time of application is going to be in furrow, foliar, or soil applied. So whenever you're making your residual pass, burn down pass, you could be putting NutriQuire in the tank at the same time. What this is going to do is it's just basically at food source to help increase that your soil biome, your biology that you already have in your soil. This is going to be a good food source to feed that biology, to get it up and going and perform better all season long. Okay, so Ingrain. This is something that's very near and dear to my heart. Ingrained is a foliar. So we're talking nutrition now. This is a foliar micronutrient. I've been working with Ingrained pretty much ever since I started the company. The big thing with Ingrained is you can see the formulation in the top left corner, and some guys might look at that and go, well, that's not as heavy of a load as some of the other micronutrients that I've used. And the reason for that is right here, I put two molecules up there, And on the right-hand side is a molecule of an EDTA chelate. And on the left side is a molecule of an amino acid chelate. And grain is an chelated with an amino acid. Okay. So what that means is it's going to help prevent your nutrients from getting tied up. Okay, from other nutrients in the soil or what have you. Okay, so an EDTA, a lot of the micronutrients that are sold today are mostly chelated with EDTA or EDDHA chelates, and those are a neutrally charged ion. So the rule of thumb is, and if I was to put the name of EDTA up there, it's about a mile long, right? And I can't even pronounce it, so there's no point in putting it up there. The rule of thumb is the longer the name, the harder it is for that to get into the plant. So for easy math, let's say if you spent $9 on a micronutrient, applying a micronutrient, um, with that EDTA molecule, it has a hard time getting into the plant. And what we've seen is only about 30% of the product that you apply on your plants on your field, you're only getting about 30% of that into the plant. So if you was to spend $9 on a micronutrient, you're only getting $3 of good out of it, right? So now that is a foreign object. So once that chelate gets into the plant, it drops off to micronutrients. That plant does not recognize that foreign object in the plant. So it says, I don't know what you're doing here, but you got to go. That plant's going to expel that chelate out through the exudates, out through the roots. But the one thing that doesn't really get discussed much is your EDTA chelates, your EDDHA chelates. They're neutrally charged ion. They want to remain neutral. So whenever it's getting expelled out through the exudates, it's latching onto calcium, possibly potassium on its way out the door. And that's why I think that whenever you apply micronutrient that's chelated with the EDTA, you apply it on your plant, you kind of see that plant kind of go limp for about a day or two. And that's why, because it's taking that calcium, it's taking nutrients out with it through the exudates. Now I'll move over to amino acid chelate. Amino acid has is one of the smallest molecular sizes of products that we work with. And the amino acid is the building block of pretty much everything. That plant, whether it's making protein or whatever, it brings that nitrogen into the plant, converts it over to amino acid, and then that plant uses that amino acid to do whatever it needs in the plant. So you got an amino acid that is chelating your ingrained, and we've put radioactive isotopes in with ingrained just to see how well this product moves throughout the plant. And what we've seen is within the first, I think it's 20 minutes, 80% of what got applied is in that plant. And I think within the first hour, we're seeing that it's already moved throughout the plant. So with that being said, that's why you see our analysis maybe aren't quite as high as some others. But the reason for that is we're getting more of that into the plant. So we're able to do more good with a little bit less because we're getting more of that actual product into the plant. So this is one that been working with. Whenever they approached me and asked if I would consult for them, that was one of the first questions I asked is what's it chelated with? And when they said amino acid, and I was like, okay, I'm interested, and so I immediately started doing a lot of tests and stuff with it, and had really good luck. I got a testimonial over here from a customer up in Minnesota that he used it and he just raved over it. So he sent me a testimonial, so that's pretty cool. Okay, whole shot. So everything that I've talked about right up to this point is pretty much a whole shot is a product. It's our in-house, I'm going to say foliar. We've got biology in it. We've got nutrient in it and that sort of thing. This is an in-house product that myself, Brad Forkner, who I work with, Brad Zimmerman, where you at? He's all the way in the back. So these two gentlemen Brad Forkner, approached me, I don't know, what was that, year or two ago. And Brad's got a unique business that he is a consultant for a lot of companies, but he's also a consultant for a lot of growers across the US. And whenever it comes to learning about biology, that guy is an encyclopedia when it comes to about biology, what it does, how it does it, and that sort of thing. So Brad was looking at, what are you now, 70, 69? And he says, one of these days I'm going to want to retire. But, you know, so myself, Brad Zimmerman, we're working with Brad to kind of help him make that transition whenever the time comes. Hopefully it's not for a while, Brad. But so we've come on board and are working with Brad Forkner to continue his legacy, I guess, if you will. So with that, we come up with Whole Shot. It is a custom blend. And so everything I've talked about up to this point is pretty much a pop the top, dump it in and go, right? They're biologies and things that have specific things that they do. But with Whole Shot, what we're doing is a balanced custom blend of biology and micronutrients to fit your operation and your needs. Okay. Um, so, all right, Whole Shot. So what we are doing is we're taking individual components. So the other products that I talked about, they have certain things in their jugs. And we talked about what 3 different products we can put together to make a formulation, that kind of thing. To where with Whole Shot, what we're doing is we're working with the individual components and putting them together to make a custom blend for what you're needing on your operation. Okay. And what we're wanting or what able to do with that is we're able to create a whole season long program from seed to harvest. We got multiple pass opportunities. And ideally, what we would like to do is we'll come up with a formulation and we're able to have a starter fertilizer program, package, foliar packages for both corn and soybeans. But ideally, what we would like to do is after we make our first application, before we make our second application, Brad has on the table over there a leaf scanner that we can do a tissue test live in the field instantaneously. So ideally, we'd like to run that, get your tissue test, and then formulate your next pass based on what your plant's saying it needs. So an opportunity for us to custom blend based on what your plant's saying it's needing. With Whole Shot, benefits from Whole Shot, it's going to jumpstart your biology, support the feeding of the microbiome, and start the nutrient solubilization process. It's going to increase the germination rate of your seed and get it up out of the ground. Brad's been seeing on average about a day and a half quicker than anything else. And we're going to protect that seed from diseases and that sort of thing. We're going to enhance root growth, cellular elongation, cell division, and create an overall more robust plant. We're going to increase that plant's health, and we're going to help the immunity to diseases. We're not going to eliminate, we're going to help the immunity to diseases. And with my blend, you're getting a full rate of ingrained. Okay, that's the nutrient package that will be in there. You're going to get that amino acid piece in there to chelate the formulation. And the nice thing or one of the things that I'm doing for you guys is since I'm going to be buying the ingrained in bulk, I'm passing that savings on to you guys. So if you buy Whole Shot, the price point of the ingrained that will be in that blend will be at the bulk price versus package price of 2.5 gallons. So that's that's about a 50-cent an acre savings to you guys. So different things we're able to do with that. So some of the things that's in the Whole Shot, we're going to have humics, we're going to have fulvics in there, we're going to have sugars in there, and we're going to have PGRs. So pretty loaded product. Um, Talking about soil testing, we also do soil testing, and if you were to work with us on soil testing, the pretty lady in the back of the room, she's starting to take over soil testing. So Mandy will most likely be the person out on your farm pulling soil tests, and we do pull our own soil tests. I do make my own recommendations, and from there, I will send your app. I will send it, if we were to make an application, I'll send your recommendations and prescriptions to whichever retailer of your choice. I do not send your soil test to them. I only send the prescription because the soil test is your information. You own that, and I don't share it unless you tell me to. I'm very adamant about that. So you can see I've got two names of two different soil labs up there, and I'll get into why. But KSI Laboratories got a really good relationship with these guys, and I would say, I'm in the process of making a transition from our traditional soil test of what we normally always are accustomed to. A lot of the soil tests that are being used today were created back in the 40s. And I had a gentleman here gave a presentation at my last meeting. He had a comment that really kind of stuck with me. Was a lot of these soil tests were created back in the 40s. And is anybody in here still farming with the John Deere A? No, we're not. So why are we still looking at using the same technology to figure out our soil test? A lot of the soil tests in our standard, and I'm not knocking by any means. Don't think that I'm knocking standard soil testing, right? But with standard soil testing, we're using acids to extract the nutrients out of that soil so that we can have a reading of how many nutrients are in that soil. But that's not telling the whole story. That's not telling us what nutrients are tied up, what nutrients are plant available. It's just telling us how many nutrients are in that soil. So with that, I'm in the process of transitioning over to Agronomy 365 platform for the reasons that they do a standard soil test whenever whenever they're doing the analysis. But this on the other side, and I won't spend a lot of time on these tests over here on the right hand side, but they do a lot more tests on that soil. And I really think it's important with what we're trying to accomplish as a business of recommending the right nutrients and that kind of, or biology and things like that to start unlocking your nutrients. It's important to know what is actually going on in your soils. So they've got a lot of different tests that they run that will help with recommendations on tillage practices, application, a whole host of a lot more tests that gives us a whole nother way to look at your soils and how they perform. And really, at the end of the day, that's what it is. They're actually looking at how the soil performs and how to best manage it. So we're in the beginning processes of making that transition moving forward. So I just wanted to touch on that. So now we're starting to get into harvest time after harvest, right? And in my timeline here. So I've put up the centerfold to the Pro Harvest cover crop brochure. And Mandy, do we have any out cover crop? But okay, booklets. Okay, so I've got, if anybody's interested, I do have a whole stack of booklets in my office that I can get you. But this is just showing, we've got a whole lineup of different blends and mixes and that sort of thing. But if you're looking for individual components, whether it's rye or it's oats or whatever case may be, we can do that as well. And we do a lot of that. So looking at doing cover crops in the fall. And whenever we start talking about CI scores with ARVA, I have played with some scores with the growers that I'm currently working with, and they, one grower in particular was I'll call it traditional, grower, works the ground, all that kind of stuff. And I ran his CI score, and if I remember right, it was like a 25. Okay. And whenever I checked the box that he applied a cover crop on it, his score went from 25 to 16. So cover crops, whenever we're looking at CI scores, plays huge in lowering your overall CI score. So definitely want to talk, mention cover crops in this conversation. Here's two products I won't spend a ton of time on, but so you got Nutrify and you got DB29. These are two products that um, Matt was talking about, products that we can be putting on our residue to help break down that residue and restart recycling your nutrients and so forth. These are two products that we can do that with. These are called residue digesters. And so that's just what they do is we'll apply them in your fall burn down or whatever in the fall. And what they're going to do is the microbes that's in this is going to start breaking down your residue and start returning the nutrients that's tied up in your residue back into the soil, making it plant available for that next crop. So we're able to start looking at reducing the amount of dry fertilizer we need to apply and getting that money that you've already spent on fertility back into the soil. So Nutrify, for you livestock guys that might be in the room, Nutrify is a product that has multiple uses. We can also use it in livestock for your deep pits and stuff. What Nutrify is going to do is it's going to help keep that methane gas, keep everything from gassing off. So it enriches the quality of your manure. And so the biology that's in that Nutrify is also going to work with the microbes that's breaking down that manure and your solids and that sort of thing. So that it works really well for if we're doing deep pits and livestock and manure and that sort of thing. So last but not least, became a channel partner with Arva Intelligence last year. It's been a great, right now currently I've paid out about $750,000 with these guys. To a lot of you guys that are in the room, received checks, and it's been a really good process. The first year is kind of bumpy in getting everything set up, but it's not terrible. Ideally, what we want to do, so while I'm talking about this, some people that I'm calling them associates that I work with. We got Brad Zimmerman in the back. Got Brian Ludwig here. He's down in Southern Illinois, and so you can reach out to any of us really to help get you set up on any of these programs. And but it's been good. And ideally, what we would like to do is start working with getting you guys set up now, this time of the year, rather than wait until the end of the year whenever it's a scramble. So if you're working with Climate, you're working with Op Center through John Deere, those are really good integrations into Arva's platform that'll start pulling your planning data, all the information that we need. It'll start pulling that information in. The more, what I'm telling a lot of guys is if you're making a trip across that field, if your butt is sitting in the seat, be recording what you're doing, because that's proof. Whenever we're getting audited, that's proof. That's from the machine that you did what you say that you did, because we do validate your information, and that's why we have such a high success rate and why we have so many companies coming to us, because we are validating that information. So Matt, I think Mandy's back, so I'm guessing lunch is ready. So this would be a good time. We can break, go to lunch, and I think Matt, hopefully he's about wrapped up with his meeting that he can come back out and cover a few more things. And then what I want to make sure is that when you guys leave here, you have a very good understanding of what's going on when it comes to this carbon side of things. Your questions asked, you have a good understanding of what's going on. So please ask myself, Matt, any questions you might have. So with that, I'd say lunch will be served in the kitchen here inside the office. drinks are outside. Tea, soda, water's outside, and all the food's inside. So thank you for coming. But does anybody have any questions though before we break? Anybody have any questions for me? Seeing none, let's go eat. Oh, Mike. I do. Did not put any of that stuff up there just for time and that sort of thing, but just definitely we can have that conversation if you're interested in these products. Yes. No. Soy FX definitely is a no-brainer. Okay. The dust products, no brainer. Those are definitely ones I would look at. Um, I would say Ion FX for corn if we're treating, but if if someone's doing your treating for you, that's where we'd be looking at dust products because that's something that we can do after the fact. But I highly recommend Whole Shot. If there's no other questions, let's go ahead and eat. Yes, sir. Thank you for coming. Okay, sounds good.